A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amin ya rabbal alamin. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. In this lesson of the catch-up series, inshallah, we are going to study a very important concept that, as you can see, is related to the ism. And this concept is important in understanding the rationale behind studying the upcoming lessons, and why it is important to get a good understanding and to get a good practice of the things that are mentioned here and what we are going to study in the upcoming lessons, inshallah. All right, because at times what happens is people tend to ignore these things, and then when we get to the bigger things, the fragments and all these things, that's when they lack their understanding, because they had not, mastered these things. And why these things are necessary, it's because they are very closely related to ism, and that's what I'm going to present in this lesson. All right, so let's begin with our lesson. Now, as you can see, I have a picture of an ocean over here, and I have also written something here. It says that just as a picture speaks 1,000 words, an ism also speaks certain things about itself. All right, so when we look at this picture, what common words do we think of? What comes to our mind? We think of waves, the depth of ocean, and how calm and serene it is. All right, so these are the common things that that almost everybody can get from this image of an ocean. So we can say, in other words, that the image speaks for itself. All right, in the very similar manner, the ism also tells us some things about itself, and as I said earlier, that we can almost say that an ism speaks about itself. All right, so what does an ism tell us? An ism tells us about four things about itself. Okay, it tells us about its i'rab. Now, we have already covered i'rab. They are the rafa nasab jar forms of an ism. All right, we have already done these from lessons 4 to 7, and these three characteristics, or these 3 points that an ism tells us about itself, is something that we are going to study subsequently, inshallah. All right, so apart from i'rab, what else does an ism tell us? It tells us about its number, whether it's singular or plural. For example, is it book or books? Okay, and then it tells us about its status, whether it's nakra or marfa. All right, now, as I have already mentioned numerous times, that my motto is to get the idea across without meddling in the grammatical terminologies. That's why I'm not going to explain this thing as definite or indefinite nouns or proper or common nouns, all right, because that's not my thing. Okay, I'm not going to bombard with the grammatical terminologies. That's why I'm going to mention example directly. For example, we know a book, all right, and the book. Now, this thing here, as you can see, is any book. All right, it doesn't have any sense of exclusivity added to it. So in Arabic, this is called ism nakra. Okay, and the book in English is a way of making an ism somewhat specific or exclusive. All right, so this thing in Arabic is called marfa, and there are some ways of making ism marfa, and we are going to study them shortly. All right, so don't worry about all those things. Just at this moment, simply understand that there are two statuses that an ism can have. It can either be nakra, for example, a book, or it can be the book. Okay, all right. And grammatical gender. This is an interesting concept for people who who only know English. All right, because in English, what happens is that, for example, if you see a book lying on a bed, what do you say? You say it is a book. You don't say he is a book or she is a book, right? But in Arabic, there is no separate terminology for an ism that is inanimate. All right, what's an inanimate object? It is simply an object, all right, non-living thing. Okay, so a book is an inanimate object, it cannot move. So um, it is your inanimate object, and in English we have it for it. Okay, but in Arabic what happens is that an ism can only be either masculine or feminine. There is no terminology for an inanimate object in Arabic. Now, this concept is similar to what we have in Urdu. In Urdu, there's only the feminine or the masculine gender. Okay, for example, hota hai or hoti hai. All right, there's nothing in between. That's the same thing as we have in Arabic. Okay, for example, if you have a book in Arabic, it's going to be he is a book. All right, the pronoun is going to be the one for this. And similarly, if you have the word tree, then it's going to be she is a tree. All right, because in Arabic the word tree is feminine and the word book is masculine. All right, so this is what we are going to study: grammatical gender, not the real gender, grammatical gender. All right, so these are the four things that an ism tells us about just by looking at it. Okay, so studying ism is all about, that's what I've written here, studying ism is all about training our minds to receive these four basic signals coming from the ism. All right, so for example, if this is a word, this is an ism, this is an ism, another ism. So every ism, each of these asma is going to present or give out four signals about itself. And what those four signals are going to be, they're going to be about their i'rab, number, grammatical gender, and status. And in the beginning lessons, we have to train our minds to receive these basic signals. All right, so this is the rationale of studying ism and the upcoming lessons. All right, because that is what is going to be directly related to what we even study in fail as well. Okay, and we'll see how it's all connected. So studying and getting a good grasp on these four things is really important. All right, okay, now this is a very little overview of what we are going to study. Okay, I don't want you to remember anything, just have just let me walk you through it so that you know what's going on here. Okay, now as we can see that the characteristics of an ism, there are four characteristics. These four signals that I mentioned earlier, they are actually called characteristics of an ism. Okay, so we have i'rab, we have status, gender, and number. Okay, and what we're going to study in the next couple of lessons is that what these things are and how we can tell them apart. Okay, so we have done i'rab already. What are those i'rab? They are rafa, nasab, or jar, right? And how do we tell them apart? Either by tanween, un and in sounds. There are certain suffixes that can tell us whether an ism is nasab, jar, or rafa. Okay, and then there is the concept of context. All right, so at times context can also tell us if an ism is rafa, nasab, or jar. All right, this is what we are going to train our minds in. And then we have grammatical gender. Now, what are the two genders in feminine grammatical genders? We have masculine and then feminine. And how do we tell these apart? There are four situations for an ism to be feminine, and if those four situations are not fulfilled, then an ism is by default a masculine ism. All right, that's what. And what those situations are, we are going to study separately. All right, then we have status. What are the two statuses? It could either be nakra, a book, or marfa, the book. All right, and how do we tell these things apart? There are 7 situations for an ism to be in marfa form. All right, and we are going to study all these separately. Okay, And finally, number. What are the numbers? We have either singular, wahid, or we have plural. And there are two kinds of plural in Arabic. First of all, it could either be a double plural, okay, so it's two in number, musanna, or it could be more than two in number, which is when it is called jama, okay. So wahid, musanna, jama. There are three kinds of plurals, okay. So wahid, musanna, jama in Arabic, okay. But in English, we have simply singular and plural, okay. There is not a separate concept of dual, double, or dual plurals, okay. That's what. And how do we tell these numbers apart? With the help of some suffixes and patterns, okay. And this is what we are going to study for ism. And once we have a grasp on these things, inshallah, we are going to notice that a lot of words from the Mus'haf are inshallah going to start popping up for us, okay. We're going to start recognizing a lot of words from the Mus'haf once we are done with these things. And while this entire overview seems to be really busy and scary at this moment, once you're done with these things, inshallah, you're going to love this overview, okay. So, well, this was our lesson for today, and what we have learned is that an ism gives out four basic signals about itself, and we have to train our minds to receive these four signals, which, by the way, is really easy, which I will inshallah prove, okay. And by the time you're done with these lessons on the catch-up series, inshallah, you're going to notice it for yourself. All right. My only advice to you would be to practice as much as possible, because that is what you need for practicing. That is what you need to grasp, to get a good grasp on these topics. That's what. And you don't even need to set out a separate time and place for practicing. Whenever you are commuting, for example, you can start off with making or practicing these things. You have already done the Arab, so you can start making and practicing these things, okay. So it's just a 30-second exercise, okay. For example, kitabun, kitabun, kitabin, and then we'll cover the suffixes, and then you can proceed on with those uh, derivatives as well, okay. So all you have to do is practice as you're going on in your life, okay. That's what you have to do. If you're going upstairs, all right, so during that time when you're on the stairs, you can just get a quick 30-second or 15-second recall. It's as easy as that. So it's all about practice. The more you practice, the better you will be, inshallah, okay. So let's conclude our lesson. I'll see you in the next lesson, where we are going to start off with the status, inshallah, okay. So barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'anil Hakim. Allah Hafiz.